Hi academic writing students. I wanted to make this short video going over some APA basics. We will cover what APA is and also how to format your in-text citations. So how to format the citations that appear in the body of your essay. APA stands for American Psychological Association. It is a scientific and professional organization that has many members in the field of psychology, researchers, educators, clinicians, and also students. What is APA style? APA style is a standard format that's used when people are publishing in the social sciences. So APA is used in the fields of psychology, sociology, education, and business. And you'll notice that these are fields that we really emphasize here at Antioch. So you will be writing in APA style often as a student here. APA style includes how your paper itself is formatted, so how the first page is formatted, how the body is formatted, your references page. It also includes how to cite sources. And it also includes guidelines on style and tone, including bias-free language, and much more. So let's talk a little bit about how to format your in-text citations. APA really emphasizes the year of publication. So we can see right here is a quote, here's the author's last name, and the year 2018 is right there in your face. And the reason is that in fields like psychology, we really want to know what's been found in research studies recently. So how current the research is matters to your reader. So we want the reader to be able to see that without having to look at your references page, to see that right away when they see the quote or paraphrase or the data that you include. So this is different from MLA. In MLA, Shakespeare is Shakespeare, and it doesn't matter that a particular piece of literature was published a long time ago. So that's a big difference to keep in mind. In terms of your in-text formatting, there's two ways. The first is called narrative format, and this is where you just have the author's last name and the year before the quote with a little context. And if you have a page number, that will go at the end. APA uses past tense verbs, so here's another example of a narrative format. When you're paraphrasing, you might, put the quote in your own words, and then you might want to just use the parenthetical formatting at the end. So here's a paraphrase, and here I'm just telling you where that information's from. So author's last name, year, page number. And you want to just, be thoughtful about when you use these parenthetical citations versus the narrative. So you don't want to drop your quotes, you want to give context for your quotes, but sometimes it's fine to just have the source tacked on at the end with the information. In APA, you might be wondering what to do if there's not a specific author for a source. Many times there's not going to be a specific author for a source. This is the case when a source is written by a group of people who work for an organization. So for instance, the content might have been written by a group of people who work for a nonprofit or a research organization like Pew, or for a university, or for a government organization like CDC. There might not be one person who was responsible for that content. So you can go ahead and use what's called a group author. So here's an example. This is something on outdoor learning gardens and community gardens published by the CDC. And we see that there is a date, but there's no specific author. So we're going to say the CDC 2020 recommended, and we're going to use the organization as the group author in this case. Here's another example from a published article, and same idea. The Garrison Institute is an organization that came out with this review, and it's just cited as a group author. APA uses the author year system, so you might be wondering what to do if there's no year, if there's no date of publication. If there's no date of publication, it's not necessarily something to worry about. You want to go ahead and use ND, the abbreviation for no date, so that your reader doesn't think that you forgot that information. For example, many pages on a website won't have a date for every single page on that website or every piece of information on the website. So this is true for many pages on websites from organizations like Pew or the CDC, and that's okay. You can just go ahead and use ND. So be sure to include that so your reader doesn't think that you forgot it. For APA, keep in mind that you're going to use just the author's last names even the first time that you introduce them. This is a big difference from MLA. So we read a piece by Ta-Nehisi Coates. If I was writing an APA, I would just say Coates argued. You want to also leave out the author or speaker's credentials. So in MLA, it's typical to tell your reader why they should trust that person and to mention what that person's professional credentials are. So if I was writing about Coates, I might mention that he was a journalist and a novelist. If I was writing about a tribal attorney and climate activist, I would include that. However, in APA, you leave that out, and you're just trusting that your readers know who the big names in the field are, or that they'll go and they'll research that information themselves. So don't include that. You want to use past tense verbs or present perfect tense. So instead of saying Coates argues, you'll say argued, has argued, has asserted, or you can say according to with the author's last name. This is another big difference between APA and MLA. In MLA, you include the title of the work and where it was published. So if I was writing about Coates' letter to my son, I would say Coates' essay, Letter to My Son, published in the Atlantic. But if I was writing in MLA, I would leave that out, or APA, I would leave that out. So here's another example. For MLA, I would include the author's name, the title of the article, and also the title of the journal that it was published in. For APA, you are going to get rid of all of that. And you can see how much shorter this is. And one of the reasons that we do this in APA is that you cite a lot of sources, and typically the journal articles, the titles are very, very long. So here we have A Taste of Inequality, Food Symbolic Value Across the Socioeconomic Spectrum, published in the Journal of Sociological Science. So if you included that every time you cite a source, it could really clutter up your paper and take up a lot of space. Your reader can go and see the title of the article and where it was published on your references page. So you don't need to cite it, all that information, in the body of your essay. So you would just have Fielding saying 2017 argued, or you could mention that it was an article, but we wouldn't want to have the title of the article and the title of the journal. So I wanted to go ahead and look at an actual journal article so that you can see how this looks. So here you'll notice at the beginning we have quite a bit of the author's own words, a lot of synthesis and some paraphrasing. Even though this one from Warner is a paraphrase and not a direct quote, we still want to give that researcher credit. So we'll still cite that information. Another thing that you'll notice is that in APA, it's very typical to not use a lot of direct quotes. It's more typical to use a lot of paraphrasing and synthesizing of information. For our class, since I'm asking you to analyze writing style and rhetoric, it might be useful to have a direct quote so your reader can see some of those stylistic features of the author's tone. But whether we're paraphrasing or quoting, we do want to have where the information is from. So you'll see a couple more examples, 2 authors and year, and then here we have et al. So I want to talk about when you would use that. So et al. Is the abbreviation for and others. And you're going to use that in your in-text citations when you have 3 or more authors. So for a narrative with 1 author, you will have 1 author's name, year, past tense verb. 2 authors, you'll have 2 names, year, past tense verb. This one had a page number, so we'll include that. And then we have 3 or more authors. You'll just list the first author's name and then et al. And this is going to save some space in your paper because articles can have many authors. I also want to talk about what that would look like in your parentheses if you're paraphrasing or just have the citation in the parentheses at the end. So here we have Coates. So here we'd have our quote or paraphrase, and then Coates and comma and the year and a period at the end. With 2 authors, the main difference here between if it's a signal phrase, narrative, or parenthetical is if you have the authors before your quote, and you're using a narrative, you write out the word and. But if everything's at the end, in the parentheses, you're going to use just the sign for an and, the and sign. And then 3 or more, and that's what that would look like there. So I wanted to also mention that sometimes what you'll see when you're reading articles is that you'll have one piece of information and there will be multiple sources in the parentheses. And this is when multiple research studies found the same thing. So including a few sources is common, and it shows that quite a few sources found the same conclusion. So here, Garrison Institute, 2005, and then we've got a semicolon and our second source that had that information. Here's another example. So it's talking about meditation and what meditation is and how you can regulate attention through observing thoughts, emotion, and body states. And here again, we have a couple of sources that are cited. So that's pretty common. All right, well, thank you for watching this video. Please email me with any questions that you have. And, another thing you can do is as you're writing, keep a list of questions that come up and we can go over those in class discussions. Thanks for watching this video.